Welcome to Beyond the Veil, the channel that unveils the mysteries hidden between myth, history, and legend. Here, we explore what lies behind the stories that have passed through the centuries, because every myth has a grain of truth. If you too are fascinated by the unknown, subscribe and get ready to look beyond the veil of reality. What if witches were never evil? It's an uncomfortable question, but a necessary one. For centuries, the image of the witch has haunted our nightmares. Dressed in black, with a pointed hat and a wicked grin, ready to cast curses and ride through the night on a broomstick. But where did all this come from? And more importantly, who were these women, really? The figure of the witch embodies a powerful paradox: feared yet admired, monstrous yet fascinating, persecuted yet immortal. She's not just a character from horror films or children's fairy tales. She's a symbol of the different, the rebellious, the forbidden knowledge. She is the personification of ancient fears and repressed desires. In this journey, we'll explore it all. From the darkest roots of witchcraft in ancient cults to the madness of the witch hunts that drenched Europe in blood. From the myth's transformation on the big screen to the rebirth of magic in contemporary society. Because if someone told you today, "I am a witch," we wouldn't be talking about demons or spells anymore, but perhaps about power, spirituality, and identity. Get ready. We're about to enter a world where reality intertwines with myth, and where magic is much closer than you think. Before the word witch evoked fear, pyres, and trials, it was a synonym for respect. In ancient times, women who understood herbs, the cycles of nature, and the mysteries of birth and death were not seen as dangerous. They were essential. In Babylon, there were enchantresses and diviners who worked in temples and read the signs of the gods. In Greece, there was Hecate, goddess of magic, crossroads, and the moon. And then Circe and Medea, powerful, feared mythological figures, capable of transforming men and bending wills with their knowledge. Not monsters, but independent and complex women. In Rome, wise women and matrons guarded recipes, rituals, and secret words. They were healers, midwives, and keepers of the village's spiritual memory. And yet, it took very little, a failed harvest, a mysterious illness, for them to be turned from guides into scapegoats. These early witches were in truth priestesses, shamans, women of power. They lived in connection with nature, the phases of the moon, and the invisible energy of all things. Their magic wasn't evil, it was ritual, not curses but knowledge. At the roots of the myth, the witch is not a monster, but a guardian of ancient wisdom. And that is precisely what, in the centuries to come, would make her so dangerous to those in power. It was a dark era, where superstition walked hand in hand with power, and fear turned into violence. The so-called witch hunts were not merely a religious or legal phenomenon, they were a true cultural genocide, one that targeted women above all. It all began to intensify in the late Middle Ages, when the Inquisition, originally created to root out heresy, turned its gaze toward women who were seen as different. It took very little to be accused, picking the wrong herb at the wrong time, a childbirth gone wrong, an envious neighbor, and the machinery of horror would begin to turn. The most infamous manual was the Malleus Maleficarum, published in 1487, a book that blended religious fanaticism with misogyny, portraying witches as servants of the devil and proposing interrogation methods as absurd as they were cruel. Torture was standard practice. Coerced confessions were treated as proof, and the sentence, almost always, the stake. Between the 16th and 17th centuries, tens of thousands of victims were recorded across Europe, most of them women. In Germany, Switzerland, Scotland, France, and even in Italy, with the notorious case of Triora, where in 1587 a group of women was imprisoned and tortured for months in a frenzy of collective hysteria. And then there was Salem, Massachusetts, where in 1692 19 people were executed and many more imprisoned, all due to baseless accusations made by a group of teenage girls. Or Pendle Hill in England, where an entire family was condemned based on superstitions and rumors. But this wasn't just a hunt for witches. It was a hunt for ancient knowledge, for female autonomy, for freedom, a systematic campaign to extinguish women's power, turning medicine into witchcraft, wisdom into heresy. And that terror still echoes today in our stories, our legends, and our deepest fears. Once burned at the stake, today she takes center stage on the big screen. The witch has journeyed through centuries of darkness to be reborn as a symbol of rebellion, power, and identity. Where she once embodied absolute evil, she now represents a complex, captivating, and deeply human figure. Cinema and literature have played a key role in this transformation. In the 1930s and 40s, Hollywood portrayed witches as grotesque villains, hooked noses, hysterical laughter, and bubbling cauldrons. But over time, that cliché began to crumble. With the 1990s Hocus Pocus, witches returned to charm and entertain. In Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, the idea of a young sorceress caught between two worlds, human and occult, took shape, balancing normal life with hidden power. Then came darker, more symbolic tones. In films like The witch is no longer a figure of fear, but a choice, an act of emancipation, a reclaiming of independence in a world ruled by patriarchy. The witch becomes a rejection of imposed rules, an embrace of instinct, sexuality, and freedom. Music, TV series, and comics have also contributed to restoring dignity and power to this figure. Today, the witch is a Gothic and feminist icon, a symbol of those who won't bow, of those who choose to live by their own rules, even at the risk of being judged. Pop culture has given voice back to those who were once silenced. And so, the witch has gone from feared creature to a symbol of what cannot be tamed. When we think of the word witch, our imagination rushes to the past. Burning pyres, whispered spells in the dark, bubbling potions. But here's the truth that few expect. Witches still exist today. And no, they don't fly on broomsticks or cast curses. They practice a form of spirituality rooted in nature, symbolism, and intention. In the modern world, magic is no longer seen solely as something dark. It has transformed into a path of awareness, of connection. Wicca, for example, is a neo-pagan religion born in the 20th century that celebrates the earth, the cycle of the seasons and the phases of the moon. Its practices include rituals, meditations, and spells, not to cause harm, but to harmonize one's energy with that of the universe. There is also natural witchcraft, more free and intuitive, which rediscovers herbs, crystals, and the energies of the elements. Modern witches do not worship evil. Often, they are people seeking balance, who approach magic as a symbolic language to better understand themselves. And in the age of social media, this rediscovery has found new life. On TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, millions of young people share rituals, tarot readings, and tips for urban witchcraft. Hashtags like #GaWitchTalk and #HowMosso Modern Witch have turned the occult into a global community, half playful, half deeply spiritual. It's not about illusions, but about rites, archetypes, and practices that speak to the subconscious. Today, magic is often psychological, symbolic, even therapeutic. So, do witches really exist? The answer is yes, but they are no longer the creatures of horror tales. They are individuals who embrace magic as a tool for healing, personal power, and connection to something greater. In a world that rushes forward, the modern witch pauses, listens, and reconnects. Over the centuries, the image of the witch has been built like a mosaic, made of superstitions, fears, and collective projections. Once upon a time, it was believed that a single mark on the body, a birthmark, a scar, a mole, was enough to accuse someone of witchcraft. A deep knowledge of herbs, or simply living in isolation from the village, could make you the target of a hunt. The so-called witches' marks, like the devil's sign, evil eyes, or even the company of a black cat, were considered irrefutable proof of guilt. Ignorance and fear turned every detail into suspicion. A woman who was too beautiful, too old, too alone, or simply too free. But all of this was merely a reflection of society's deepest anxieties. The real crimes of many of these women? Being independent, having a voice, knowing too much. Today's modern witches don't wear pointed hats or fly on broomsticks. There are no secret spells or visible signs. A witch today is often someone who respectfully practices an alternative spirituality, someone who is in tune with lunar cycles, tarot, meditation, and the energy of nature. And yet the question remains, does magical power truly exist? That depends on what we mean by magic. If we're talking about lightning bolts shooting from the hands, no, that belongs to the realm of fantasy. But if we mean intention, energy, inner transformation, then yes, there is real power in ritual, in symbolism, in connecting with one's shadow and with the universe. In the end, the strongest magic is the kind that transforms the one who practices it. It's the kind that changes perception, that heals, that brings light to the dark corners of the soul. Modern witches don't seek to control others. They seek to understand themselves. Witches never truly vanished. They simply changed face, voice, language. Once feared and persecuted, they've become powerful symbols of rebellion, autonomy, and connection to what society has often tried to suppress. Mystery, intuition, personal power. Their allure is timeless because it speaks to something deep in our subconscious. The witch is the woman who won't bow, who knows the secrets of both darkness and light. She's the one who defies imposed rules, who dances under the moon, who embraces her shadow and turns it into strength. And today, more than ever, that symbol is returning with renewed power. Witches are everywhere, in films and books, on social media, but most of all, in the hearts of those seeking an authentic path outside the norm. Because true magic isn't just casting spells, it's choosing who you want to be, every single day with courage. From outcasts to protagonists, the age of witches isn't over, it's just beginning. And now I ask you, if you could practice magic, would you? Tell me in the comments, I'm curious to hear your answer. And if this journey through history, myth, and transformation intrigued you, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. Here, the darkness always has a story to tell.